What if the person you're crying over was never meant to stay? What if the silence you're suffering through is actually Allah protecting you? You keep replaying the memories. You keep checking your phone. You keep asking yourself what you did wrong. But here sits the question no one wants to ask. Why are you fighting to keep someone Allah already removed? Maybe this wasn't set abandonment. Maybe this was alignment. Maybe Allah saw the version of you that would slowly break and decided to intervene before the damage became permanent. You call it heartbreak. Allah calls it mercy. Tonight we set not talking about revenge. We stir not talking about winning them back. We stir not talking about proving your worth. We stir talking about something far more powerful. We're talking about letting go as an act of faith. We stir talking about self-love as tawakkul. We're talking about why Allah didn't create you to be broken. And by the end of this video, you won't see your heart break the same way again. 1. Allah removes what breaks you. There is a pain that feels like abandonment, and there is a pain that is actually protection. Most people cannot tell the difference. When someone walks out of your life, when they suddenly change, when their love turns cold, when respect disappears, and you are left questioning your worth, your first instinct is to panic. You replay every conversation. You search for mistakes. You blame yourself. You ask Allah, why did you take them from me? But what if Allah did not take something good from you? What if He removed something that was quietly destroying you? Not every loss is a punishment. Some losses are a rescue mission. Allah is Al-Latif, the most subtle. His protection is not always loud. It does not always come with signs in the sky. Sometimes it comes disguised as rejection. Sometimes it comes in the form of unanswered messages. Sometimes it comes through a closed door you begged to stay open. You saw love, Allah saw the future. You saw comfort, Allah saw compromise. You saw attachment, Allah saw how much of your dignity you were about to sacrifice. There are people who slowly chip away at your self-worth while smiling at you. There are relationships that drain your imaan without you realizing it. You start missing prayers. You start justifying disrespect. You start tolerating behavior you once swore you would never accept. And all of it happens gradually. That is how breaking begins, quietly. And Allah, in His mercy, sometimes interrupts the breaking before it becomes permanent. You call it heartbreak. Allah calls it mercy. Think about it carefully. If someone truly valued you, truly respected you, truly feared Allah regarding you, would you have to beg for consistency? Would you have to shrink yourself to keep them? Would you constantly feel anxious about losing them? Love that is written by Allah does not require humiliation to maintain it. When Allah removes someone, it is often because your heart would never have been strong enough to walk away on its own. You were attached, you were hopeful, you were invested, you kept seeing potential instead of reality. So Allah stepped in, not to hurt you, but to save you from a deeper wound later. Imagine holding a glass that has already cracked. You can pretend it is fine. You can hold it tighter. But the tighter you grip it, the more likely it is to shatter in your hand. Sometimes the safest thing is to put it down, even if you like drinking from it. Some relationships are exactly like that cracked glass. You were holding on to something already damaged, and Allah knew that if you kept holding it, it would cut you far worse in the future. We often think love means endurance at any cost. But Islam does not teach you to endure emotional harm in the name of attachment. Islam teaches dignity. It teaches balance. It teaches that your heart is an amanah, a trust, and trusts are not meant to be abused. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, manipulates you, lies to you, or makes you feel small, that is not a test you are required to pass by staying. Sometimes the test is whether you will finally let go. And here is the part that is hard to accept. If Allah removes someone from your life and you chase them back, you may be reopening a door Allah closed for your safety. There is a difference between fighting for something that is healthy and fighting against divine wisdom. You do not see the unseen. You do not know what conversations would have happened later. You do not know what betrayal was approaching. You do not know what damage could have unfolded months or years from now. But Allah knows. He knows the words they would eventually say. He knows the pain they would eventually cause. He knows the version of you that would be left behind if you stayed. So He removed them early. And now you are standing in the middle of what feels like emptiness. But emptiness is sometimes space being cleared for something cleaner. The mistake many people make is romanticizing what hurt them. You remember the good moments. You forget the nights you cried. You remember their promises. You forget their patterns. You remember the beginning. You ignore the warning signs at the end. Allah does not operate based on your nostalgia. He operates based on your protection. If someone left, let that reality speak. If they hurt you, let that truth settle. If they showed you inconsistency, believe what you saw. You are not meant to convince someone to value you, and you are not meant to break yourself to keep someone who was never written to stay. Sometimes the most powerful act of faith is this: accepting that what left was not meant to remain. Allah removes what breaks you so that you can rebuild stronger. He removes what distracts you so that you can focus deeper. He removes what weakens you so that you can grow in strength. You think you lost them, but maybe Allah saved you from losing yourself. 2. Self-love in Islam is not ego, it is amanah. Many people hear the words love yourself and immediately think of arrogance, selfishness, or pride. They imagine someone who only cares about their own comfort and ignores everyone else. But that is not what Islam teaches. In Islam, loving yourself correctly is not ego, it is responsibility. Your heart is an amanah, a trust from Allah. Your mind, your dignity, your emotional well-being, your imaan, all of it is entrusted to you. And on the day of judgment, you will not be asked why you kept someone who disrespected you. You will be asked how you protected what Allah placed under your care. You cannot treat an amanah carelessly. If someone insults you repeatedly, lies to you, humiliates you, manipulates your feelings, and makes you feel small, and you continue allowing it, that is not patience. That is neglect of the trust Allah gave you. Islam does not command you to endure emotional destruction in silence. Patience in Islam is strength with dignity, not weakness without boundaries. Look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ. He was the most merciful of people, yet he never allowed injustice to define his worth. He forgave, but he did not accept humiliation as identity. He showed compassion, but he never compromised truth to keep people comfortable. There is a difference between being kind and being a doormat. Some people confuse self-sacrifice with righteousness. They believe the more they tolerate pain, the more rewarded they will be. But Islam does not reward you for allowing yourself to be abused. It rewards you for upholding justice, even if that justice protects you. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to say, this behavior is not acceptable. You are allowed to step away from someone who repeatedly harms your peace. Self-love in Islam begins with understanding your value in the sight of Allah. You are not valuable because someone chose you. You are valuable because Allah created you intentionally. He fashioned you. He gave you a soul. He gave you intellect. He honored the children of Adam. Your worth is divine in origin. It does not increase when someone texts you back. It does not decrease when someone walks away. When you constantly seek validation from people who treat you poorly, you slowly hand over the control of your self-worth to them. Their attention becomes your oxygen. Their approval becomes your stability. But the heart was not created to depend on unstable sources. The heart was created to be anchored in Allah. If loving someone is pulling you away from your prayers, disturbing your focus, making you anxious day and night, and lowering your sense of dignity, that attachment is not love. It is imbalance. Self-love is choosing what strengthens your imaan over what weakens it. Self-love is refusing to shrink your personality to fit someone's insecurity. Self-love is walking away when your presence is constantly disrespected. It is not ego to protect your peace. It is obedience. Because when you protect your peace, you protect your connection with Allah. Think about this deeply. If someone insults you in public, cheats you in business, or steals from you, you would not call it arrogance to defend yourself. You would call it justice. So why is it considered pride when you defend your emotional well-being? Why is it labeled selfish when you refuse to tolerate disrespect in relationships? Some people benefit from your low boundaries. They benefit from your silence. They benefit from your fear of being alone. And when you begin to protect yourself, they may accuse you of changing. Yes, you changed. You remembered that you are an amanah. Islam teaches balance. You are commanded to treat others with kindness, but you are not commanded to allow others to mistreat you. You are encouraged to forgive, but forgiveness does not mean staying in harm's way. Loving yourself first does not mean ignoring others. It means refusing to destroy yourself for them. There is a powerful shift that happens when you understand this. You stop begging for love and start expecting respect. And respect begins with you. When you see yourself as an amanah from Allah, you will no longer hand your heart to someone who treats it casually. You will no longer tolerate behavior that distances you from your Creator. You will no longer confuse emotional chaos with passion. Self-love in Islam is not loud. It is quiet dignity. It is praying on time even when your heart is heavy. It is saying no when something threatens your peace. It is trusting that Allah's opinion of you matters more than anyone else's attention. And when you reach that level of understanding, you no longer chase people who hurt you, because you finally understand protecting your heart is an act of worship. 3. Tawakkul means releasing control. Most people say they trust Allah. Very few are willing to prove it. Tawakkul is one of the most misunderstood concepts in Islam. We think it means making dua and hoping for the best. We think it means saying, if it's meant to be, it will be. But real tawakkul is far deeper. It is surrendering your need to control the outcome. And that is where most hearts struggle. When someone hurts you but you still want them, your instinct is to hold tighter. You text again. You explain yourself again. You try to fix what they broke. You replay scenarios in your head, imagining different endings. You feel like if you just say the right words or wait long enough, you can make it work. But control is an illusion. You cannot control someone's loyalty. You cannot control their feelings. You cannot control their sincerity. You cannot force someone to fear Allah regarding you. The only thing you truly control is your response. Tawakkul begins the moment you say, Ya Allah, I release this to you. Not because you stopped caring, but because you trust that Allah cares more. There is a heavy burden in trying to manage every outcome. It creates anxiety. It creates overthinking. It creates emotional exhaustion. You feel responsible for holding everything together, even when the other person is barely trying. But you were never meant to carry that weight. When Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tied his camel, he still trusted Allah. He took the means, but he did not obsess over the result. That is balance. You make effort, but you do not attach your peace to the outcome. If someone is written for you, no distance can erase them. No misunderstanding can permanently remove them. No temporary silence can block what Allah has decreed. And if they are not written for you, no chasing will make them stay with barakah. You can force proximity, but you cannot force destiny. The heart that lacks tawakkul constantly fears loss. It fears abandonment. It fears being replaced. It fears not being enough. But the heart anchored in Tawakkul understands something powerful. What is meant for me cannot miss me. And what misses me was never meant for me. That belief changes everything. It changes how you react to rejection. It changes how you respond to silence. It changes how you handle someone walking away. Instead of collapsing, you pause and say, Allah knows what I do not. And that sentence carries strength. Releasing control does not mean you stop feeling pain. It means you stop fighting reality. You stop trying to rewrite what Allah has already written. Sometimes people cling to someone not because they are good for them, but because they are afraid of starting over. They are afraid of being alone. They are afraid of the unknown. But Tawakkul requires courage. It requires trusting that Allah's plan is not just different. It is better. You might be attached to a person because they feel familiar, but familiarity is not always mercy. Sometimes it is just comfort in chaos. Tawakkul asks you to step into the unknown with faith. It asks you to believe that Allah's replacement will be healthier, purer, and more aligned with your akira. There is a deep peace that comes when you truly surrender. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You stop obsessing over their social media. You stop trying to decode mixed signals. You stop shrinking yourself to keep their attention, because you understand something greater is in control. When you trust Allah with your heart, you no longer beg people to handle it gently. You hand it back to the one who created it. And here is the reality: the more tightly you cling to someone out of fear, the more unstable you feel. But the moment you open your hands and say, Ya Allah, if this is good for me, keep it. If not, remove it, and remove my attachment, something shifts inside you. You feel lighter. You feel stronger. You feel anchored. Because Tawakkul is not passive. It is active surrender. It is choosing faith over fear. It is choosing peace over panic. It is choosing Allah over attachment. And when you reach that level of trust, letting go no longer feels like losing. It feels like obedience. 4. When attachment becomes a test of the heart, there is a line most people do not realize they have crossed. At first it is just affection, then it becomes dependence. Then slowly, without noticing, your emotional stability begins to revolve around one person. Your mood depends on their message. Your peace depends on their tone. Your confidence depends on their attention. And when they pull away, you feel like you are collapsing. This is where attachment becomes dangerous. Islam teaches love. It encourages marriage, companionship, mercy between hearts. But Islam never teaches you to anchor your identity to a human being. Your heart was not created to orbit around someone unstable. Your heart was created to orbit around Allah. When someone becomes the center of your emotional universe, you begin to expect from them what only Allah can provide: constant security, constant reassurance, constant validation. And humans are not designed to carry that role. They forget. They change. They get distracted. They disappoint. But Allah does not. When your attachment crosses into dependency, Allah may test you by shaking that attachment, not to punish you, but to realign your heart. Because sometimes what you call love is actually fear of being alone. Sometimes what you call soulmate is simply emotional addiction. You check their status. You analyze their words. You overthink their silence. You tolerate behavior you once said you would never accept, all because you are afraid of losing them. But ask yourself honestly, when you imagine losing Allah's pleasure, does it disturb you the same way losing this person does? That question reveals where your heart is anchored. There is a subtle form of imbalance that happens when a person becomes your source of worth. Their presence makes you feel valuable. Their absence makes you feel empty. That is not healthy love. That is misplaced reliance. Reliance belongs to Allah. When your reliance is misplaced, Allah sometimes removes the object of attachment to purify your dependence. It feels like devastation, but it is actually correction. Because if someone's approval determines your self-esteem, you will constantly feel anxious. If someone's presence determines your happiness, you will constantly feel unstable. But when Allah becomes your anchor, everything changes. You still love people, you still care deeply, but you do not collapse when they leave. You understand that humans are companions on the journey, not the destination. Some people enter your life as a blessing, others enter as a lesson, and the test is whether you will cling to the lesson as if it were a blessing. Not everyone who makes you feel intense emotion is meant to stay. Intensity is not always compatibility. Attachment is not always destiny. And sometimes Allah removes someone because they were slowly becoming your emotional idol. An idol is not always something you bow to physically. Sometimes it is something your heart bows to internally. If your dua revolves more around a person than around your growth, your character, your akira, your priorities may need realignment. Allah loves you too much to let your heart worship something fragile. So He shakes it. He detaches you. He creates distance, not to leave you empty, but to teach you that your security must come from Him first. When your heart returns to Allah as its primary source of comfort, you experience a stability no human can provide. You stop fearing abandonment so deeply. You stop tolerating disrespect just to avoid loneliness. You stop chasing people who treat you casually, because your worth no longer depends on their presence. This is the test of attachment. Will you choose emotional dependency, or will you choose spiritual anchoring? Will you cling to someone who destabilizes you, or will you anchor yourself to the one who never changes? When you understand this, letting go becomes easier. Because you realize losing a person is painful, but losing your center is far worse. And Allah will never allow His sincere servant to lose their center without guiding them back. 5. Pain is not the end. It is a spiritual upgrade. Most people see heartbreak as destruction. Islam teaches you to see it as transformation. When someone hurts you, your first reaction is to ask, why is this happening to me? But a more powerful question is, what is this preparing me for? Allah does not waste pain, not a single tear, not a single sleepless night, not a single moment of confusion. Every experience that shakes you is either breaking you down or building you up, and the direction depends on how you respond. Some people let pain turn them bitter, others let pain turn them better. Heartbreak has a way of exposing truths you ignored. It reveals red flags you once excused. It shows you how much you were tolerating. It confronts you with your fears. Fear of loneliness, fear of rejection, fear of not being chosen. Pain forces clarity. Before the pain, you might have been blinded by emotion. After the pain, you begin to see patterns clearly. You recognize manipulation. You recognize inconsistency. You recognize where you abandoned your own standards just to keep someone close. That awareness is growth. Allah sometimes allows your heart to crack so that unhealthy illusions can escape. When everything feels perfect, you rarely reflect deeply. Comfort keeps you distracted, but pain demands reflection. It pushes you toward sujud. It pushes you toward dua. It pushes you toward questioning your priorities. How many people only return to Allah with full sincerity after a heartbreak? How many people strengthened their salah because someone left? How many people matured emotionally because they were hurt? Pain is uncomfortable, but it is often catalytic. It exposes what needed to change. And here is the part most people miss. Sometimes the version of you that existed in that relationship was not your strongest version. Maybe you were insecure. Maybe you were overly dependent. Maybe you tolerated disrespect. Maybe you ignored your own growth. Allah sees the potential inside you that you cannot yet see in yourself. And sometimes He removes what keeps you small so that you are forced to grow. A seed must break open before it becomes a tree. The breaking is not the end of the seed. It is the beginning of expansion. The same applies to your heart. The heartbreak you are experiencing may feel like collapse, but it might actually be expansion. Expansion of wisdom, expansion of boundaries, expansion of emotional strength. Pain teaches you to value yourself. Pain teaches you to recognize red flags early. Pain teaches you that your peace is more important than temporary passion. Without the hurt, you might have continued repeating the same pattern. Without the loss, you might have remained stagnant. Allah does not allow hardship without purpose. If this experience pushed you closer to prayer, it elevated you. If this experience made you reflect on your standards, it matured you. If this experience strengthened your reliance on Allah, it purified you. That is not destruction. That is upgrade. You may not see it immediately. When you are in the middle of pain, clarity feels far away. But months from now, you may look back and realize that what broke you actually saved you. Saved you from wasting years. Saved you from deeper betrayal. Saved you from losing yourself completely. Sometimes Allah answers your dua not by giving you the person you wanted, but by strengthening you through the pain of losing them. Because the ultimate goal is not just companionship, it is growth. It is nearness to Allah. It is becoming a stronger, wiser, more grounded believer. Pain refines you. It burns away naivety. It burns away dependency. It burns away illusions. And what remains is a clearer, stronger version of you. So do not rush the healing. Do not numb the lesson. Do not run back to what hurt you just to avoid discomfort. Sit with the growth. Let the pain teach you. Because sometimes the greatest mercy is hidden inside what first felt like loss. And one day you will realize that heartbreak was not the end of your story. It was the turning point that raised you to a higher level. 6. You cannot heal in the same place you were hurt. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: healing requires distance. Many people say they want peace, but they refuse to step away from the source of their pain. They keep the conversation open. They respond to late-night messages. They check social media. They stay emotionally available to someone who already proved they can wound them. Then they wonder why the pain never leaves. You cannot heal in the same environment that keeps reopening the wound. If every interaction with someone leaves you anxious, confused, or doubting your worth, staying close to them is not strength. It is self-sabotage. Islam teaches wisdom, and wisdom includes knowing when to step back. Even the Prophet ﷺ made hijrah when staying in Mecca became spiritually harmful. He did not remain in an environment that constantly attacked his mission and dignity. He trusted Allah and moved forward. Sometimes your hijrah is not physical. It is emotional. It is choosing not to answer that message. It is choosing not to revisit old conversations. It is choosing not to stalk their updates. It is choosing silence over reaction. Distance does not mean hatred. It means protection. If you touch a fire and it burns you, you do not keep touching it to prove you are patient. You step back. You protect yourself. You allow the wound to heal. Why should your heart be treated with less care than your hand? Some people confuse loyalty with staying no matter what. But loyalty without boundaries becomes self-destruction. If someone consistently disrespects you, lies to you, or treats you as optional, staying close to them does not make you faithful. It makes you fragile. Healing requires space to breathe. When you constantly expose yourself to the same person who hurt you, you are sending your heart mixed signals. You are telling it, this is safe, even though it remembers the pain. That confusion slows recovery. True strength is not proving you can tolerate harm. True strength is knowing when to step away. There is a reason wounds need time untouched to close properly. If you keep pressing on them, picking at them, revisiting them, they remain open. Emotional wounds are no different. You cannot replay memories daily and expect peace. You cannot stay in communication and expect detachment. You cannot keep hoping they will change while ignoring the evidence in front of you. Healing begins when you accept reality. Not the version you wish existed, not the version you hope for, the version they have shown you consistently. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-respect is quiet withdrawal. You do not need dramatic speeches. You do not need revenge. You do not need to prove anything. You simply create distance. Distance allows clarity. When you are too close to someone, emotions blur your judgment. But when you step back, you begin to see patterns you once ignored. You recognize red flags more clearly. You understand how much anxiety you were carrying. You realize how much of yourself you were sacrificing just to maintain connection. And that awareness strengthens you. Some people return to what hurt them because loneliness feels heavier than pain. But temporary loneliness is far healthier than permanent emotional instability. Silence can feel empty at first, but within that silence, you rebuild. You reconnect with Allah. You restore your routines. You rebuild your confidence. You remember who you were before the chaos. That rebuilding cannot happen while you are still entangled in the source of harm. Healing is not dramatic. It is small daily decisions. Choosing not to respond. Choosing not to check. Choosing not to chase. Each small decision builds your strength. And one day, you realize something surprising. You no longer feel the urge to reach out. You no longer feel the need for their validation. You no longer feel defined by their absence. That is healing. And it only came because you were brave enough to create distance. Allah did not create you to live in emotional turbulence. He created you for stability, dignity, and purpose. And sometimes the only way to return to that stability is to walk away quietly, trust deeply, and allow time to do what chasing never could. Heal in peace, even if it means healing alone. 7. Allah did not create you to be broken. There is a lie heartbreak whispers to you. It tells you that you were not enough. It tells you that if you were more patient, more beautiful, more understanding, more forgiving, they would have stayed. It convinces you that their departure is proof of your deficiency. But that lie collapses the moment you remember who created you. Allah did not create you by accident. He did not design you carelessly. He did not assign you worth based on someone else's opinion. You were created with intention. When Allah formed you, He honored you. He placed within you dignity, intellect, emotion, and a soul capable of knowing Him. Your value does not begin with a relationship, and it does not end with one. If someone leaves, it does not reduce what Allah already decided you are worth. The problem is that many people measure their value by who chooses them. When someone stays, they feel validated. When someone leaves, they feel rejected at the core of their identity. But being unchosen by a human does not mean you are unwanted by Allah. And being removed from someone's life does not mean you were unworthy. It may mean you were misaligned. Not everyone who connects with you is meant to continue with you. Some people are chapters, some people are lessons, some people are temporary tests. But you are the main story of your life. When you allow someone's treatment of you to define your identity, you slowly give them authority they were never meant to have. You begin adjusting yourself to earn love. You silence your standards. You tolerate what once disturbed you. You shrink to avoid being left again. That shrinking is what truly breaks you. And Allah did not create you to live in self-erasure. You were not created to beg for affection. You were not created to compete for attention. You were not created to sacrifice your dignity just to feel chosen. The love that is written for you will not require humiliation to maintain it. The companionship that is written for you will not require you to betray your own peace. And the person who fears Allah regarding you will not make you feel disposable. If someone treated you as optional, let that be your clarity. If someone repeatedly disrespected you, let that be your evidence. If someone walked away without fighting for you, let that be your answer. Chasing them will not restore your worth. It will only convince your heart that you must earn what should have been freely given. Real strength begins when you stop trying to convince someone of your value and start remembering it yourself. Your Creator knows your value. He knows your sincerity. He knows your loyalty. He knows your tears. He knows the nights you overthought every detail, and He does not measure you by who left. He measures you by your patience, your character, your reliance on Him. When you internalize that, something shifts. You stop asking, why wasn't I enough? You start asking, what is Allah preparing me for? You stop chasing closure from someone who already showed you their capacity. You start seeking contentment from the one who controls all hearts. You realize that being broken is not your destiny. Being refined is. There is a difference. Brokenness suggests permanent damage. Refinement suggests growth through pressure. Allah refines His servants. He shapes them through experiences. He strengthens them through challenges. He elevates them through tests. And sometimes the test is whether you will walk away from what diminishes you. Choosing yourself in obedience to Allah is not selfish. It is alignment. It is saying, Ya Allah, I will not destroy the gift you gave me just to keep someone who does not treat it with care. That is maturity. That is faith. That is self-love rooted in Tawakkul. One day you will look back and realize that the person you thought you needed was only teaching you one thing. You were enough before they arrived. You are enough after they leave. And your worth was never negotiable. Allah did not create you to be broken. He created you to rise. Maybe they left. Maybe they changed. Maybe they hurt you in ways you never expected. But hear this clearly. If Allah removed them, it was never to destroy you. It was to protect you. Stop begging for what walked away. Stop chasing what disrupted your peace. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's uncertainty. You were not created to live in emotional chaos. You were created with dignity. You were created with purpose. You were created to be anchored in Allah, not dependent on fragile hearts. So if you stir struggling to let go, make this dusta tonight. Ya Allah, if they are good for my dunya and akhirah, return them in a way that pleases you. And if they are not, remove the attachment from my heart and replace it with something better. Trust that what is written for you will never require you to break yourself to keep it. Let them go. And watch how Allah restores you with something that does not require you to bleed to deserve it.